So you finally got that potential client on a call. Congrats. They're nodding, they're engaged, they're loving everything that you're saying. And then they drop the line, Maya, I just don't think it's the right time right now. Now, if you've been in sales for any period of time, and even if you've been in sales and been in business for a long period of time, that one still stings. So I want to talk today about how you can have that moment happen and it doesn't have to throw you off your game. Now, if we've never met before, my name is Maya Haradat. I'm a business coach and speaker, and I help entrepreneurs uncover what they don't know that they don't know about sales. And today, I'm going to break down exactly how to handle that conversation with, drumroll please, emotional regulation and data driven confidence. Because this is more than just you being a slick salesperson. That is not what we are about right here. This is about showing up real. This is about showing up authentically. This is about showing up as your best self. But you want to put yourself in a position where you're not chasing clients or doubting yourself. So I'm going to share with you some tools today on how to be able to set that up so that you're able to hear that feedback. It's not the right time, and then understand how to make decisions moving forward. And let me go backwards for a moment here because a couple months ago, I actually had this scenario show up in my own business, right? I was on a sales call and it was someone who seemed ready. Like, oh my gosh, like I knew when I got on this call, I was like, she's ready. We're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. We had confirmed the appointment. She reached out to me and was like, I'm ready for today's call. She was excited. She had all of the details. I had my process put together. She knew the offer, everything lined up, y'all. Like, I'm like, this doesn't get any more perfect than if we try. And then in the middle of the conversation, she said, you know what? I just don't think now is the right time. And I want to tell you, I'd actually love to tell you that I was a sales saint at that moment, and I was not. Because that morning I had gotten two unexpected bills in the mail. I'm looking at my the cost of everything right now. Oh my gosh, right? The grocery bill is through the roof, the gas is through the roof. Like my expenses are increasing by the moment. And so to get those two big unexpected bills in the mail and then to hear now is not the right time from something that I thought was a done deal, I gotta be honest with you, I was kind of frustrated about it. I was not in like this like peaceful, zen, grounded state when it happened, y'all. I really wasn't, okay? But here's the key is that, and I think this is the important part, you don't have to go into sales and always be perfect, right? You get to show up as a human. And you can have a moment of disappointment about it, but I want to argue that there's something even more powerful than disappointment at that moment. And I want to talk you through how to think about what you do instead of spiraling, because it's really easy to have that happen and then you spiral. Like you just like, I don't want to work for the rest of the day, right? Like I can't deal. So in that moment, let me tell you what I did was I actually remember visibly taking a breath because that was not the reaction I expected, but I took a moment, took a deep breath, and I started asking her some really genuine fact-finding questions, right? Like I am not here to talk anyone into working with me. That's not the goal of it. And I don't think anyone out here selling a service should do that either. You're not trying to talk the person into doing it, but you are trying to get more clarity on exactly what does not the right time actually mean. And then this is the key. This is the thing that I think a lot of times gets neglected. When the call ended, I sent her a thank you email. I did not chase her, y'all, right? Like, and yeah, it would have been really sweet to have a new client come in, and it would have been really, really, really good considering those bills that were coming in. Like, that's a real deal thing. But I didn't overthink, what had happened in that moment. I was not stressing myself out. I'm not trying to hard, press her or pressure her or anything like that. I wasn't over analyzing my performance in the sales call as well. Of course, there's always things that I can do better, 1,000%, but I did not overthink it. Here's what I did. I marked her as one of my 10 prospects for the month because every month I have a sales plan. I have a number of prospects that I'm going to work with, and then I have a number of sales that I'm going to close. And that month, my 10 prospects, she just became one of my prospects. And this was the key. I put her on my follow-up list. And I want to highlight this moment here because for a lot of us, when we have these encounters, when we have these moments, we're depending upon just like, white knuckling it. And we're depending on just pure grit. No, we want to depend upon emotional regulation. Okay. About you being able to keep your emotions in check, even if you need the money. We also want to depend upon data-driven confidence. I can recall how I used to feel on these types of sales calls when I didn't know the number of prospects that I needed for the month. And for the record, 10 was that month. Some months it's lower, some months it's higher. It all depends upon what my overall sales plan is. But I can operate from a very different perspective and like genuinely, not where I'm faking it or where I'm like, yeah, and really underneath it all, we're like, yeah, you're really stressed out over this right now. No, like you don't move. I don't move from panic. I'm moving from clarity. And I think for a lot of us, we're often making these types of decisions and we don't have the data in front of us to really do this in a real and meaningful way. And so I want to talk you through a few ways of how to get underneath the surface behind what's really going on and then how to help you navigate this moving forward. Okay? So let's talk about this for a minute. What is actually happening when people tell you it's not the right time? Now, I was trained years ago when I used to first start doing work around sales, and I was trained on how to be able to sell more effectively and things like that. I was trained a long time ago that when a client or prospect rather gives you that objection, that it actually means that they're stalling, right? Like they have the money or they have the ability, like you just haven't cleared their objections well. You didn't answer all of their objections. I don't know. I operate sales from a very different perspective, and I think operating from the culture that I represent, from the gender that I represent, just how I walk out on this earth, I don't always see it as like they're making an excuse. I don't. I do think, I will say this though, sometimes fear is underlying the decision that they're making, right? I do feel that there is a lot of times the uncertainty. And so my job right now is to just own and honor what that is that's showing up and not negate it and make them into something or somebody bad, but just to be really understanding about what's really happening, right? Like right now, for example, there's been a lot of talk in our market right now about this being what's called a K-shaped economy, right? Where the top half of the market is doing really well, and the bottom half, they're trying to stay afloat, right? And the folks in the middle, it's kind of like this curve down at the bottom that it's like it's looking really, really ugly right now. So here's the reality about that. If people don't feel safe, they're going to stall. So there might not be anything wrong with my offer whatsoever, which I actually don't think there is anything wrong with the offer, in particular working with that specific client. But that person is delaying decisions right now because it requires risk, right? Even if the risk is to help them grow and make more money, by the way, it's like it doesn't have to be about logic right now. But if they feel like it's risky, if they feel like they're going to be taking too big a risk, and here's an interesting way of thinking about the risk for the record, right? Like I know that if they're working with me and they're working with my group, it's not risky because I've had success before and I've worked with a number of people that are very similar to the type of challenges that she was presenting. Like it's not a risk to me, but to the other person, it could be perceived as a risk. And so when that moment happens, your job is not to push them harder. It really isn't. Lead with curiosity, okay? When you hear not now, reframe it and think about, well, are they telling me really like that they don't feel safe yet? You got to step in as a guide and not someone that's chasing them, someone that's there to support them, someone that's there to help them and kind of help them navigate what that looks like. And so this is where that emotional regulation comes in, because that's honestly, I think, a very secret skill that separates those that can close consistently from like that frantic person that sells. When you don't have emotional regulation, all you need is one rejection, and then you don't want to sell again for like the next 10 days, right? You're over analyzing everything. Like, should I have said that? Should I have said this? Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done it that way. Or you do the infamous, okay. So I tell you what if I give it to you for like 50% off? Okay, that's not good. What if I do it for like 75% off? Okay, what if I pay you to work with me? And I'm joking, but I'm not joking because that's what happens when your emotional regulation is not there, right? You're going to find yourself obsessing and redoing your offer page 60 different times. And look, this particular offer that I was putting in front of her, the page is good. It's not great. There's always things that I could work on, but she had enough information to understand the value of what she was going to get. And it's my job. I want to emphasize that. It's my job to make sure that I'm emotionally regulated when I'm having that sales conversation so that I'm treating the no as data, not drama. I think that might have to be a mic drop, by the way. I think I like that. The more I say it, we need data and not drama. The more I hear that, the more I'm like, wait, hold up. This is it. This is it. Listen, you have to take a pause sometimes. You have to really step back and be able to reflect instead of defending what you did and why you did it, right? And another one too, I mean, that's really, really big is you got to protect your energy. What is your plan? Run with the plan, right? Like it's kind of, look, if you've been through, well, most of us have probably been through high school, and if you've been through college, there's a plan, right? There's a certain number of credits you have to take in order to be able to graduate. And there's times where like you could be waiting until the last minute with something, or to where you're like you're not quite sure, you're stressed out, but you go back and you follow the plan. So I want you to figure out your sales plan and then protect your energy around the plan. And one quick example for those of you that are like, what does that mean to protect your energy, Maya? I don't really understand. Just today, as a perfect example, there were a list of things that I needed to get from the supermarket, and I spent the extra money to have Instacart deliver them. And there's a reason why I did that, because I was able to protect my energy today so that I could lead a 3-hour class that I had to lead later on. Now, I technically had the time to go to the supermarket, go pick up the stuff, come back home, and then lead the 3-hour class. I could totally do that. No, you protect your energy so that now when I'm showing up for the class, I'm not tired, I'm engaged, I'm ready to go. It's the same thing with sales calls. You got to show up protecting your energy around sales calls. And when people give you an answer that you don't like, protect your energy and use your sales plan as the anchor. It gives your brain something objective to hold on to when your emotions are all over the place. I'm not saying not to have emotions. I'm not saying that at all, but make sure you get yourself back in balance and stasis as soon as you possibly can. Okay? And I think that's the real thing about it, because when I had that conversation and she says, I need more time, it's not the right time, or, whatever the objection is, I immediately in my brain darted to, all right, she's client, she's number 2 on the list. I said I needed 10 prospects, so I just got to go through 8 more people. Let me find the people. Let me stick to the numbers, stick to the data so that I can be calm and confident in the rest of that call. And let's talk about the data for a minute, because I don't think in sales that for a lot of people, especially if you've never done sales before, I don't think that there is an understanding and an awareness that sales is about data, right? It's about data-driven confidence, because this isn't just about spreadsheets, y'all. This is about you trusting yourself based upon the numbers that are behind it, right? So every entrepreneur that I coach that feels desperate around their sales, it's because they're guessing it. And I'm really hard with people about this when we first start working together, where it's like, hey, okay, so I'm going to go and do some outreach. Great. How many people are you going to talk to? Well, why do you need to talk to that number of people? Like, what is that part of the plan that you're working on so that there's data behind it, that there's a reason why you're doing it? Now, in the beginning, you may not know what your closing rate is. You may not know what your conversion rate is. You may not know how many people you need to talk to before you make a yes, get a yes. So you can guess at that. That's totally fine to say, well, I have a theory that I need to talk to 10 people this month in order to get to 2 sales. You can totally do that. That's fine. But it's not about just randomly showing up for a sales call and then not having clarity behind, well, yeah, actually, I need to do this probably like 9 more times this month to see if this is going to work. Because otherwise, when someone tells you it's not the right time, you're going to panic. You're going to go straight into panic mode because your brain has associated, oh my gosh, this was my one chance. Even though in truth, no, you really need to have 9 more of these or 8 more of these conversations this month. When you know your numbers, when you know exactly how many people you need to reach, how many calls you need to make, how many times you need to post on social media, how many networking events you need to show up at, how many emails you need to send out, whatever the way is that you sell, your conversation is just one step in a process. It's not the process. That, my friends, is data-driven confidence. That is something that changes the sales game forever, because you get to show up authentically as you, not as somebody else, and you're going to be able to have way more wins in the long term and protect your energy in the process. So when your calm doesn't show up the way that you need it to, I don't need you to start now depending upon faith and hope and prayer. Those are wonderful things, by the way. I need you to start depending upon evidence as well, right? You just say to yourself, all right, cool. That's one of my 10. Let's move on to the next one. And let me tell you something. Clients feel that. Prospects actually really feel that energy. They can tell when you are in a, for lack of a better word, pissy mood, right? And or you don't feel like pitching for the rest of the month now because you got this one no. They feel that and people respond, and then you're in this spiral effect where nobody wants to work with you now. But when you're grounded, right? When you're detached from the outcome, that builds trust, that builds security in people. Then they want to take the risk with you, right? So let's go into like 3 points here about how you build curiosity in that moment, because I know you're probably still thinking, okay, this is all great and all, but I have bills to pay. So what am I supposed to do? How do I do this curiosity thing you keep talking about when someone tells me it's not the right time? Because that's all you probably hear in your mind is it's not the right time, right? And I get it. I get it. So first is I want you to identify the questions that you want to start asking when you hear it's not the right time. And actually, to help you out, I actually have a freebie underneath this video here, the 5 curiosity questions to ask after a no, because it's going to help you gather some data so that you're going to have a better way of being able to handle this objection. You're going to have a better way of going through this conversation without making the other person feel pressured, and also without putting undue stress on yourself. The first one is the timing. Okay. You want to be clear. Is it an actual bad time? Your offer may be correct, but the timing for the other person, there may be something else that's going on. I mean, I will always remember for as long as I live, I've had conversations with women, like if I could be talking on Zoom, for example, I don't know if a woman, for example, is, if she's pregnant or if she's dealing with any type of issues, from like beneath, this area from the shoulders down, right? So I could be talking to a pregnant woman. I can't tell. And it could be a bad time for her to make a decision to let's start working with a coach or with the type of work that I'm going to be doing, because she's going to be focused on something else in a few months from now. So I'm just giving that as one example, but there's a number of times where the timing is really bad. And so it may be that they want to work with you. It's just not right now. Now, another part of the it's not right now is also the budget. And one of the best ways to handle that, once you get clear if it's the actual budget, like they may not have the money available right now, but they still do want to work with you. You have the room then to adjust the scope, right? And I mean, that's a whole nother video, a whole nother conversation of how do we adjust the scope in a way that continues to help you make sure that you're profitable. But sometimes that's why they're saying not right now. Like they just don't have the budget that's available, you know? You also may be running into one, and I found this happens somewhat commonly when you're talking B2B. It's a secret thing that shows up the first time it shows up, and then after you see it one time, you're like, okay, I got it. Are all the decision makers on the call? Who else needs to be present in the conversation to be able to say yay or nay? So I've gone into this a number of times when I'm doing sales calls for the B2B clients that I work with, where I will start out by saying, hey, are all the decision makers who are involved in this process, are they all present on this conversation? And if they're not, we actually will get off of the phone at that point in time, or get off of the Zoom or whatever we're on, and reschedule for another time. Because if the decision makers are not there and that person is trying to relay information back to the next person, it's just never going to work. There also could be something with the fit itself. Is there something that they feel that's missing? Is there something about, where they have hesitations around in terms of how the delivery is going to be done? You want to actually fact find and figure that out. Now, that one, by the way, the fit question is one of the few times that I think when someone says that not now, that's one of the few times that I think that you can spend some time in reviewing your offer, spending some time reviewing on how you deliver and things like that, if you hear that come up multiple times. Okay. If one person tells you the fit is bad, it's just one person. But if you hear a couple of prospects rather back to back to back to back saying that it's a fit issue, they feel like something's missing or it doesn't quite fit in what they need solved and the way they need it solved, that's the one exception that I would make for you to be able to go ahead and start looking and tweaking that offer page, or being able to review what it is that you're actually being able to share. And then the final part is the clarity, right? I've now in classes where I'm working with the public, for example, I have more and more people that are neurodivergent that I'm working with. They think and process differently than I do, right? Or, people, I remember one of the first times that I started working with clients who were very introverted, right? And so there were certain things that I used to look for with my fellow extroverted friends, and I would see these clues and signals and they'd be showing me something. And then I'm dealing with people who are way more introverted, and I'm like, okay, well, did it work? Did it not work? Like maybe they need the information shared with them in a different way. They need time to process it, where they can kind of take time and really rethink it. They may not be the type that can say yes right there directly on the call in that case. So you want to start thinking through these areas and these types of questions. There are always others as well too, but I think these 5 are some of the typical ones that I tend to see show up when it comes to the thing of it's not the right time now, right? And when you start getting comfortable asking these questions and being genuinely curious, and like, don't be curious in a way that's kind of like, being silly, but genuinely curious. Like you genuinely want to know. You're creating a safe way to engage with that prospect. You're creating a safe conversation with them that I think in the long run is going to benefit you. And even if these first couple of prospects are no's, it definitely is going to help you be able to refine your process when you start working with others in the future. Okay. Now, here's another example too of where when you're leaning in with the curiosity of where the pros are different from the amateurs. And this is the follow-up process. So I want to highlight the number 10 that I was using, and that may be your number. It may be more, it may be less. I don't know. Like you got to get the advice and the customization to know what it is for your business. I need you to understand if you stop at one conversation, you are leaving money on the table. Every single person that says it's not the right time needs to go straight into your follow-up bank. Now, your follow-up bank could be a formal CRM that you have. It could be a Google Sheet that you have, or you could be like me and just have an old school notebook. Yes, I said an old school notebook. There's something powerful for me when I see it in my own handwriting sometimes. Like I will keep a lot of detailed notes in tools that are online, but a lot of times I do like to actually write the person's name out in a notebook because it just helps me track them and nurture them and not forget that person, right? So now that person, you check in with them periodically, right? And it's not like this high pressure, like, wow, are you ready yet? No, but it's like, hey, how you doing? How are things going? Here's something I thought might be helpful for you, a resource that might be helpful for you, or a podcast you might want to check out. You just stay top of mind. You do it calmly, you do it confidently, and you do it consistently. The follow-up, by the way, if you do the follow-up really well, you will start changing your sales numbers really, really powerfully. And that, my friends, is everything, because sometimes people don't like the follow-up process because it's just not how they imagine sales works. And I think follow-up is sales leadership personally. When you are really doing a good job of following up, I think you are exemplifying what it means to be a sales leader. So now the final one that I want to give you about being a sales leader and navigating when someone tells you it's not the right time now, I also need to emphasize in this conversation, in sales, you have to be tracking. You cannot improve what you don't measure. Okay. So if you start hearing a number of calls, and you should know the number that end with it's not the right time, right? I need you to start figuring out what's going on there. And this is the power of where the numbers come in and using actual data to make decisions rather than, oh, this was just a bad call, right? So if 7 out of 10 people tell you it's not the right time and it's, oh, because of the timing, right? Like you keep getting to people at the wrong time, then maybe your offer is misaligned with their buying cycle. Maybe you're not hitting the time frame of when they're ready to buy in the way that they're going to then say yes, right? If it's because of their budget, right? If it's because their budget is not high enough, or they had a different thought in mind of like what this was going to look like, maybe you have to spend some time thinking about your positioning and how you're positioning the offer and how you're presenting it to others in terms of what it is that you're making available. Okay. There could be a whole host of reasons as to what's showing up, but I want you to start to, after you finish that call, start tracking some of the reasons that show up and review those insights. Because when you review those insights, you're going to get trends, you're going to get patterns, and you become less reactive. You've got now actual data so that you have something to be able to reflect on and then turn that into a different answer, right? You can actually get the solution, you get more people actually buying from you. So listen, I know right now that there's a lot of things that look really tight out there. People seem cautious or less risk averse, and we do need to take risks to say yes to our offer. And, the one I was talking to someone about recently is money feels really different. Like it just is different. I need you to remember in the midst of this, your calm confidence is what gives a potential client permission to trust you and say yes. So when you start leading with emotional regulation and data-driven confidence, you're going to stop trying to close people and you're going to start getting them more clear and saying yes. And that's leadership in sales. And that's what we want right now. So the next time when someone says, oh, it's just not the right time, do not spiral. Okay. Do not chase, do not discount. Ask questions, learn from it, track the responses and the data, and keep your energy steady. And if you want to get those 5 questions, I want you to grab that free handout from below. It's called the 5 curiosity questions to ask after no. Print it, keep it by your laptop, and use them, right? Lead with curiosity, lead with the clarity, because you're going to start turning that hesitation into insight. And yeah, insight turns into actual income. All right. So I hope this one was helpful for you. And if you haven't already, check out some of the videos that are in this series to give you some more insights on how to be able to bring in more sales into your company. Have an amazing one.